My name is Thomas Reed. I am 93 years old, and for the last 11 years, I have eaten most of my meals alone. That sentence used to sound tragic to me. It used to feel like a verdict, a summary of loss. Now it feels like a teacher. You don't understand what eating alone does to you until you've done it long enough. The first few times after my wife passed, I couldn't even sit at the table. Margaret and I had eaten together for 67 years. Breakfast across from each other, coffee in the same chairs, dinner at 6 sharp. It was a rhythm, a quiet ceremony, repeated thousands of times. When she was gone, the chair across from me became louder than any silence I had ever heard. The first night I tried to eat alone at the table, I lasted 3 minutes. I stood up, moved to the living room, and ate on my lap like a bachelor who never learned better. It felt easier not to face the empty space. But grief does not disappear because you change rooms. So I went back to the table, and that is where the lessons began. The first thing eating alone taught me is this: presence is a discipline. When you eat with someone, conversation fills the air. You comment on the food, you ask about their day, you pass the salt. There are small movements and exchanges that make the meal feel alive. When you eat alone, there is no distraction. Just the sound of your fork against the plate, the clock ticking, your own breathing. At first, that silence feels like punishment. Then, if you let it, it becomes clarity. I realized how often, in my younger years, I ate without noticing the food. I was in a hurry. I was solving problems in my head. I was half listening. I was planning tomorrow while chewing today. Eating alone forced me to pay attention, to taste, to slow down, to notice when I was actually full. There is something humbling about sitting across from an empty chair and decide not to rush through the moment just because no one is watching. It taught me that attention is not something you give only when there is an audience. The second thing eating alone taught me is this: loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is painful. It is the feeling that something is missing. Solitude is chosen. It is the acceptance that you are enough company for yourself. The first year after Margaret died, I was lonely at every meal. I would set the table for 2 out of habit. I would begin to speak and then stop. I felt incomplete, as if the act of eating required a witness. But slowly, I stopped setting the second plate. I stopped talking to the air. I started listening to my own thoughts instead of running from them. And I realized something uncomfortable. Many people are afraid of eating alone because they are afraid of being alone with their own mind. When you sit quietly with a plate of food and no one to perform for, you meet yourself without distraction. Your regrets, your memories, your gratitude, your questions. You cannot scroll your way out of that at 93, and perhaps you shouldn't at 33 either. The third thing eating alone taught me is this: gratitude deepens in silence. When Margaret was alive, meals were joyful, yes, but they were ordinary. They were routine. We assumed there would be another dinner tomorrow, another breakfast next week. When you eat alone long enough, you realize how many meals you shared without recognizing their value. Now, when I butter a piece of toast, I think about the thousands of times she did the same across from me, not with sorrow, with reverence. Solitude sharpens appreciation. You notice the warmth of soup more carefully, the sweetness of fruit, the effort it took to prepare the meal. When there is no conversation to carry the moment carries you. Another lesson arrived unexpectedly. Eating alone taught me discipline. It is easy to skip meals when no one is there to remind you. Easy to eat carelessly. Easy to stand over the sink with a slice of bread and call it dinner. But I made a decision. I would treat myself with the same care I once treated us. I set the table, even if it was just one plate. I sat down properly. I did not rush. Self-respect does not disappear when you are the only one watching. In fact, it becomes more important. Because when no one else is present, your habits reveal what you truly believe about yourself. Do you believe you are worth the effort, or only worth it when someone else is there to benefit? Eating alone answered that question for me. It also revealed how much of my identity had been tied to companionship. For decades, I was Margaret's husband. I was part of a pair. Our conversations overlapped. Our preferences blended. Our routines intertwined. When I began eating alone regularly, I had to rediscover my own preferences. Did I like more pepper? Did I prefer the window seat? Did I enjoy silence or soft music? These sound like small things. They are not. Knowing yourself outside of relationship is a quiet strength. I learned that I enjoy simple meals more than elaborate ones. I learned that I prefer mornings to evenings. I learned that I think more clearly when I am not multitasking. Eating alone stripped away the noise, and beneath it, I found something steady. I found myself. Now, do not misunderstand me. I still cherish meals with family. When my children and grandchildren visit, the house fills with noise and laughter. Plates clatter. Stories overlap. It is beautiful. But I no longer fear the empty chair. I no longer rush to fill silence with sound. Eating alone taught me that life does not lose meaning when companionship changes. It shifts. In part 2, I will tell you what eating alone revealed about regret, about time, and about the kind of peace that only arrives when you stop running from quiet. If you have ever avoided sitting alone at a table, ask yourself why. The answer might teach you more than the meal. There is something else eating alone taught me, and it took longer to understand. It taught me about regret. When you sit quietly with a plate of food and no one across from you, memories come uninvited. Meals from decades ago. Arguments that started over nothing. Apologies you meant to say but postponed. Laughter that felt ordinary at the time and now feels sacred. Silence has a way of opening drawers you didn't realize were still inside you. At first that was painful. I would replay small moments, times I was distracted, times I chose work over dinner, times I rushed through conversation because I thought there would always be another chance. Eating alone removes the illusion of unlimited tomorrows. You begin to understand that every shared meal was a gift you didn't label properly. But here's the surprising part. Regret, when faced in quiet, softens. If you sit with it long enough, instead of running to noise, it stops accusing and starts teaching. I learned to forgive the younger version of myself, the busy man, the distracted husband, the father who sometimes answered too quickly and listened too little. I did the best I knew how to do at the time. Eating alone gave me the space to make peace with that. It also taught me about time. When you eat with others, the meal moves quickly. Conversation carries it forward. Laughter stretches it or compresses it without you noticing. When you eat alone, time behaves differently. 5 minutes can feel long. 20 minutes can feel eternal. At first, I wanted to hurry through it. Finish. Clear the plate. Return to distraction. But one evening, I slowed down intentionally. I chewed carefully. I watched the light shift on the kitchen wall. I listened to the faint hum of the refrigerator. And something changed. Time did not feel heavy. It felt full. We rush because we think life is ahead of us. At 93, I understand it is also behind me. That awareness does not depress me. It sharpens me. When you have fewer years in front of you than behind you, you begin to respect the present differently. Eating alone taught me that a simple meal can be enough. Enough conversation inside your own mind. Enough awareness. Enough gratitude. It also revealed something uncomfortable about modern life. Many people do not know how to be alone without feeling abandoned. They reach for their phones before the fork touches the plate. They turn on the television to avoid hearing their own thoughts. They fill every pause with noise because quiet feels like emptiness. But quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is space, and space is where understanding grows. In that space, I began asking myself better questions. What truly matters now? What relationships still need tending? What habits still deserve correction? When you eat alone regularly, you confront your own company. You cannot blame the mood on someone else. You cannot distract yourself with performance. You meet yourself honestly. And if you stay long enough, you might even like the man or woman sitting there. I discovered that peace does not require constant activity. It requires acceptance. Acceptance that life changed. Acceptance that the chair across from me will remain empty. Acceptance that loneliness visits sometimes, but does not stay forever. There's a calm that arrives when you stop resisting what is. Eating alone did not make me stronger in the loud, dramatic sense. It made me steadier. It taught me to respect my own presence. It reminded me that dignity is not dependent on an audience, and it gave me a simple but powerful realization. If you can sit at a table alone, eat slowly, and feel whole instead of lacking, you are not truly alone at all. You are complete. I still miss my wife. I always will. But I no longer treat the empty chair as an enemy. It is a reminder that life is fragile, a reminder to cherish shared meals while you have them, and a reminder that when those meals end, life does not. It simply asks you to learn how to sit with yourself. If you've avoided eating alone because it feels uncomfortable, try it once without distraction. No phone, no television, no rushing, just you and the meal. You might find that the quiet has more to say than you expected. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.